Hello from Gardening at Dwensa here in Ireland, and this video is a look at houseplants, specifically the ones in my kitchen. So we're going to spend a little while just having a look around this lot. Hope you enjoy it. So welcome to my houseplant video and welcome to my kitchen. I've put the kettle on, so we'll have a look at the plants and then we'll sit down and have a cup of tea. I've no coffee here, we're not in Dublin, you know, so you're going to have to make do with tea. And I suppose I'm going to start, as always, there's not really an always, I've only made 2 videos like this before, but I'm going to start over here on this side, and we will start with this hanging plant, the Columnea, that I featured recently in a video just about it. And I think possibly this is currently my favourite hanging plant. It's called the goldfish plant because I think if you look on these flowers from above, they really do look like goldfish. Gorgeous, gorgeous little thing. Now it's just coming to the end of its flowering, and yeah. But it still has a number of these orange blooms. And if we look up above, you can see that there are lots of new growths coming from the plant. So I look forward to it continuing to do so well for me. It grows, I mean, this set of windows here we're looking at are north facing, so it's not a highlight plant, but it is one that appreciates the warmth. I just love it. Love that. Now below it on the windowsill we have a couple of plants we are not going to mention so much. The Poinsettia, which I bought at Christmas and which will go on the compost as soon as it finishes being red. I'm not prepared to try and grow this into a tree as it would in its native East Africa. It'll go in the compost, and I won't cry about that because it's all a natural circle of things anyway, isn't it? Things go in the compost and they come back as to nourish other plants. I have 2 Latouria type dendrobiums beside it, which are not doing very well at all, and I'm not going to dwell on the orchids too much, although we do have orchids over there which I'll give you a brief look at, but this really isn't an orchid video. Having said that, and as we move closer to the elephant in the room, or the Monstera in the room, I will just pause briefly to point out this orchid. And I mean, I suppose, you know, I say this isn't an orchid video, but my house plants are so dominated by orchids that it's very hard to ignore them completely. And this is a Masdevallia, which has decided it likes me. It's been giving me a smattering of flowers for several months since last summer, which was incredibly hot, which is not what Masdevallias are supposed to like, but there you go. This one is just opening now, and there's another one there, and I saw another spike down there. So yeah, so I'm doing something right with this, or else it's just a really, really easy hybrid. But it took long enough to kind of get used to my environment and decide that it would bother to flower. It nearly ended up in the compost. So that's the Masdevallia, and I had it in a much cooler room first until it started flowering, and then I brought it into the kitchen to enjoy it, which is the warmest room in the house. And still it continues to flower, so yeah, I don't know. You go figure with that one. Now here I'm moving across and showing you my Monstera deliciosa, a giant of a plant, which is like 40 years old now at this stage. It was my mother's, and I repotted it into a potting video not very long ago. Actually, it's probably a couple of years ago now. But this plant was first in my grow room, and then for ages I had it in the hall, and it's just so big it was always in the way. It got damaged when people opened the door, and really, you know, the poor thing was just not appreciated where it was. So I decided to bring it in here and put it in the kitchen. And I think this is exactly what I want. It gives the whole feel of the room a kind of a jungle-like feel, because it's such a really big pot and such a really big plant, and it's so much happier. It gets more light in here, it gets more warmth, it gets more watering because, you know, I get to see it every day. And people who visited, even non-plant people, have talked about how well it looks, so I'm pleased with this. Now when I moved it in here, what I did was cut off all the aerial roots because I don't want it sticking to the wall, and it does fine. It does fine without that. There are some down below here, look, which I didn't bother to take off. I suppose I should. There we go. Flowers are our constant friends. Such a true word. And down here we have the little houseplant Fittonia that I bought recently at Johnstown. Cute little thing. It may need a bit more light than this going forward, but so far it's doing well there. Happy enough with it. And so moving across here, we have Christmas cactus in coming into bud, and up above another Christmas cactus, and it's very hard to show things here at the window. Primulina, perhaps. And then we are looking at this corner here. Now this is a kind of shady corner because it's between two windows, and it works well for begonias. And I love my begonias, as anyone who's watched the channel for any length of time will know. Now on the left here we have an orchid. This is the Coastal Sunrise, which has really quite pretty orange flowers, and this gets a bit more light because it's just next to the patio doors here. It doesn't live here 24/7, it only comes here when it's in flower, and it's just at the end of its flowering. Now this kept getting knocked and falling out of the pot after it had been recently repotted, so I have strapped it in really well and I hope it'll behave better now. And just beside this orchid we have Begonia Escargot, which is an amazing begonia and one that I really love. I think possibly it's my favourite begonia. And it's called escargot because the shape of these leaves look very like snails. Really pretty thing. Now with begonias, I don't water them much at all. I find I run into trouble if I overwater, and this one has done well. It needs a repot. I'm going to pot it on and get it bigger because, you know, it's such a nice plant. I really do want a really big specimen of it. Down below we have a Christmas cactus that is just finishing flower, and I think actually there are some buds coming. It's not the best place for it because of course it's not getting adequate light. These are highlight plants, but it looks good in there. And here we have a cute little begonia that my son bought for me years ago. Unfortunately, it's never looked as good as it did when he gave it to me first. I can't find the label now, but we'll put it up on the screen. It's never looked as good as that again, so I'm not quite sure what I'm doing wrong with it. But it really had very pretty flowers, and well, we have had some flowers, but never a very full display, which is what it had when I was given it originally. And in front of that we have Begonia sizemoreae. Now this is a species begonia, which is a bit of an animal. And you can see that here by these hairs. look how it's absolutely covered in hairs, soft hairs as well. It's really such a tactile plant. You just want to go up and touch it the whole time. And look at the mottling on the leaves. Now apparently this is a kind of variegation. It's not it's not something wrong with the plant at all. It's variegated and it's supposed to look like that. And here's one of the leaves just unfurling now. I love this one, and if Escargot is my favourite begonia, then this one is surely my second one. Although there is another one I love too, which we'll see in a minute. But yeah, it needs a repot. It needs to go into a bigger pot because this is one, again, I want to grow big. I want a really big specimen of this beautiful plant. And look at begonias, look at them. They slot into a home environment so well. They don't need a lot of watering, they don't need a lot of light, and they just keep on giving in terms of these amazing, amazing leaves. And beside we have this tree, which you saw me buy in Johnstown Garden Centre not very long ago. So I don't have it terribly long, but it is doing really well with me. And yeah. And hopefully it'll hurry up and get enormous, because enormous is the name of the game here. I'm really into the enormous plants at the moment, the enormous house plants. I really want my kitchen to take on a jungle feel, at least this part of the kitchen that we're looking at now, because yeah, it's the main room and this is my environment. This is what I have to work with, and this is what I'm going to make beautiful. Okay, so moving across, on the middle table we have the majority of the orchids in bloom. This is where I put them so that I can appreciate them. Bob Betts, looking a bit dog-eared now at this stage, but still pumping out its glorious scent, which is perfuming the whole kitchen. Lovely, lovely plant. And behind it does Pink Pig, also a Cattleya type orchid, which has flowered for me before. This is its second flowering, and it's kind of coming to the end of the flowering now, which you can see by the evidence of, see that dark mark there. Unfortunately, it didn't make my last orchids in bloom video. It came into flower after that, but anyway, I'm showing it to you now, so that's great. It's got a frilly lip, which I think is really cool, and I love the shape of the petals. Really nice, much better shape to it than Bob here, in my opinion. Although Bob isn't bad, but they're just more tapered and streamlined. Really like it. And here we have Paphiopedilum Leeanum, which I expect to flower for a very long time, as paphs do. So good for it. And then just over here, Phalaeonopsis, which of course flower for a very long time, always. I think you need so little skill to actually get these hybrids to work for you that I don't know why. Everybody just doesn't have them in their house. And Prosthechea cochleata. We have a couple of flower spikes since the repotting, and a couple more on the way. And yeah, so since this isn't an orchid video, we won't dwell too much on the shelving here. We have various orchids, and you will be learning about some of them soon when I publish my video on my Schwerter haul. So I recently visited the German orchid nursery Schwerter and bought myself some few plants, and I'll introduce you to them soon. I have a phal up there and my Galeandra, which seems to like that environment. Moving down, cactus, and look at this. Love this bromeliad. And this was a gift sent to me by a dear friend in Germany. Thank you very much, Bjorn. Love that plant. And down below we have this succulent, which isn't a lithop, it isn't a living stone. It's a Pleiospilos. Yes. Right, now, when I got it, there were more than one bits to the plant, and since then this part of it has just collapsed. Now, I was reading about it, and what's supposed to happen is that the outer sections of the plant are supposed to collapse, and when they do, any water that's been held in it is released, and that's a kind of natural watering mechanism for this particular plant, which you really mustn't water very much at all. So I held my nerve, and even though this one kind of just keeled over, I haven't been watering it. I'm just waiting for these outer things to die off, but we'll see how it goes. And just leaving that behind, just to give you a look at my Streptocarpus. This is the only one I have in flower at the moment. This is DS-Hawaiian Party. It's a double, and it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. This is my favourite Streptocarpus. Absolutely love that to bits. Neoregelia there beyond, which do not flower for me, and an orchid here waiting to be repotted. Here we have some of my South African bulbs that I recently potted up, and even though they might be fine in the greenhouse normally, just because they were so new, I decided to bring them into the house. You can see here, if I just move across the rest of them, and the good news is, well, this Albuca had green leaves when I potted it, so that's nothing new, but the Begonia has sent up a shoot, so that's really great news. And just before I leave crawling around on the floor, I'll mention the two big pots, which are my two largest Amorphophallus konjac. Now the smaller ones are in the greenhouse. I probably should bring them in because they're never going to get going if the temperatures out there are so low. Normally I put Amorphophallus konjac on a heat mat in the house to get it going. Now these two, despite being very large in size, are not going to flower for me this year, but that's okay. We'll have leaves and they'll build up their strength, and then I'll have flowers when they're good and ready. And without dwelling on orchids and spoilers, I will move up this shelving to show this lovely begonia, which some of you may recall I bought at Dibley's a few years back. Curly Firefrush, I believe it's called, and it is gorgeous. Now this, I must say, I haven't grown it very well. I had it in a position where it didn't have enough light, with the result that it kind of got leggy like this and stretched. But I am going to, I've given it more light now, and the new growths are certainly shaping up to be a lot more impressive. Look at its really red stems. And the depth of the colour combinations, I think are really impressive. So check back with me in a little while and hopefully this will be grown better. And speaking of plants that really should grow better, this is my poor long-suffering Hoya, which desperately needs a repot and a bit of TLC, and I guess I'll give it before too long. We have a couple of orchids here. This is an Oncidium type, which won't flower, and we have a Phalaeonopsis palens, which you know and love from many of my videos, and another begonia, which looks fantastic when the sun catches it. I really like that one in the pot. In fact, I should turn these pots around because it's got its good side towards the light, whereas what we want is the good side towards the kitchen, don't we? So I really should rotate that. Okay, so leaving that there. The other thing I want to show you is this large plant here. And I'm taking bets now. Can anybody tell me what kind of plant this is? You might be mistaken for thinking that this was a Schefflera from the leaves, but it's not a Schefflera. And then as we move down, you can see its stems or its canes. And I think this is kind of the giveaway, when you can see this kind of effort, then you know and can recognize it as being a begonia. But a very unusual begonia it is too. I have two of these, one of which I overwinter in the greenhouse, but this one comes into the house. And I absolutely love this one to bits. Love, love, love it. Now you need to give it enough light and you need to stake it. And I have a shoot at the back here, which is like, it really should be staked up more. I need a bigger stake. But it's challenging to get a stake that's proportionally thin enough to not look bad against the begonia, but yet is tall enough to support such long growths. So just travelling down again to get an idea of the extent of the plant. It likes to be watered, this one, it really does. It's quite different from the other begonias I grow in terms of how it needs to be cared for. Let's just go in and have a quick look again at the leaves. Begonia luxurians. Definitely one of my favourite begonias. Okay. So, I guess I have introduced you to the plants in my kitchen, in this half of my kitchen. On the windowsill on the other side we have some orchids and some hanging orchids and some nepenthes, stuff like that. But down here on the north side and the west side, that's west facing, we have this lot, which I hope you've enjoyed looking at. There's the Monstera again. And let me just move back so we can get a kind of view of everything. Well, that's that bit. And then over here, again, I forgot to mention that begonia there. Cute. Okay, that's it. That's all. That was my kitchen visit and my houseplant visit. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you'll give it the thumbs up and check back for lots more plant, whether they're outdoor plants or indoor plants or orchids or garden visits. It's all to do with plants on this channel. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.